now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, March 6th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Chet Walczyk. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. Let's kick it off and get going here with the weekend edition cover section. And I always like to find something to feel good about to get us moving. And under the heading of Women of the Year, following a dream from trailer girl to country superstar, Lainey Wilson built career with fire and faith, brick by brick. And this is written by Brian West from the Tennessean, which is a USA Today network affiliate. When Lainey Wilson was 9 years old, she wrote a song called Lucky Me. She still remembers every word. That same year, she got her first pair of bell-bottoms, her first horse, and her first glimpse of the stage that would indelibly shape her future, the Grand Ole Opry. My mom and daddy brought me to Nashville when I was 9 years old, Wilson says on a video call from Brisbane, Australia. I just remember going to the Opry and watching Bill Anderson, Crystal Gayle, Phil Vassar, Little Jimmy Dickens, and I just thought, man, I want to be part of this community. I felt like I already was. I just needed to try to convince everybody else that I was too. The 33-year-old, dressed in her signature bell-bottoms and matching cowboy hat, is moments away from performing her second sold-out show at Brisbane Entertainment Centre. Before stepping onto the stage, she gathers her band for a quick dance party where really weird moves are encouraged. The 4x4 by You singer has spent 15 years building toward this moment, becoming a global household name. It is crazy to think that people on the other side of the world are somehow finding their story within mine, but that truly is the power of storytelling and the power of country music, she says. It just goes to show that we're all a little bit more linked than you think. Even on the other side of the world, we might not have grown up the same exact way, but we all want to live and laugh and love. We've all been hurt. We've been through things. It's my job to just get up there and make people feel something. The singer-songwriter and her older sister, Jana, grew up in Baskin, Louisiana, population 170. Their father, Brian, farmed corn, wheat, and soybeans in a stretch of northeastern Louisiana farmland. Their mother, Michelle, was a school teacher. I feel like everybody in my town is just who they are, unapologetically themselves, Wilson says. The truth is, I didn't know there was any other way. I knew that I was signing up to tell stories and make people feel something. I sure would have hated to have been anything other than myself. Wilson's father showed her a few chords on the guitar at 11. As a preteen, she was writing constantly, chasing melodies the way her dad chased harvests. In 2006, she uploaded an EP to MySpace titled Country Girls Rule. In high school, she booked herself as a Hannah Montana impersonator, performing at birthday parties, fairs, and festivals across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas, even once for child cancer patients at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. With a sixth string and a dream, Wilson moved to Music City in 2011. She lived in a 20-foot Flagstaff camper trailer for 3 years and hustled up and down Broadway to book gigs, play at hole-in-the-wall bars, and cement relationships brick by brick, she says. I was known as the camper trailer girl around town, she says, and there were definitely times when I should have probably packed it back up and went back home to Louisiana. But there was this burning fire inside of me and this faith that I was given a gift and I was supposed to share it. She released a self-titled album in 2014, followed by Tougher in 2016, which cracked the Billboard Top Country Albums chart. A self-released EP in 2018 helped land her a publishing deal with Sony ATV and a management contract the same year. Country Music Television tapped her for the Listen Up class of 2019 and its next Women of Country tour. She toured with Morgan Wallen in 2019, and her first song to reach #1 was Things a Man Ought to Know in 2021. Her songs found their way into the massively successful Yellowstone universe. She never asked to be on screen. She never auditioned for a role. Creator Taylor Sheridan wrote a role specifically for her. I thought, if they're calling me to be an actress, well, I got to do it, she says. Showing up for Yellowstone, I was pretty much playing myself with a different name. Her ease on screen opened new doors in Hollywood. In March, Wilson will star in the movie adaptation of Colleen Hoover's bestseller, Reminders of Him. After Yellowstone, my next goal was to play a role where I was not a musician, Wilson says. I wanted to completely step out of my comfort zone and try something that I had never tried. And honestly, it feels a little bit like songwriting because sometimes I am stepping into the shoes of somebody else and writing from their perspective. Now her trophy shelf is stacked. 16 Academy of Country Music Awards, 15 Country Music Association Awards, and a Grammy for Best Country Album with Bell Bottom Country. And that big dream she chased, she nabbed it just days after she turned 32 when she was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. But ask her about the hardware and accolades, and she doesn't talk about validation. She sees it as a result of her faith, both in herself and a higher power. I have had a lot of those comments where I'm like, thank you, God, Wilson says. To tell you the truth, it goes back to me finally getting to Nashville. I'm like, thank you, God. I'm here. I've been preparing for the race. I've got to enter it. Her favorite cell phone emoji is the running man, fitting for someone who rarely slows down. She is always running and gunning, which is probably why her newest unreleased song is called Can't Sit Still. That momentum carries her from songwriting sessions to sound checks to sold-out shows and red carpets. At the Grammys, she turned heads in a black strapless top with dramatic ruffled shoulders and a plunging neckline paired with her signature bell-bottom pants. The look flowed into a sweeping train. I have a lot of things to be grateful for, she says. It's been a lot of just like, God, you have given me the desires in my heart. In the in-between moments, she spends evenings on the porch with her fiancé, former NFL quarterback Devlin Duck Hodges, and her French bulldog, Hippie Mae Wilson. Life, she says, is golden. Looking toward the future, Wilson says her one word for 2026 is connection. And if connection is her foundation, women are her compass. She grew up surrounded by women who carried more than their share. Her mother balancing lesson plans with life, teachers who encouraged her, and artists who created enough room in country music for her to gain a foothold and make way for others. People in general inspire me. Hearing their stories, she says. My family inspires me. The town that I grew up in inspires me. Getting to travel the world and meet different people from all different walks of life. I feel like I kind of pull inspiration from a little bit of everywhere. On tour, she sees young girls in bell-bottoms singing every lyric back to her. She meets women who tell her a song helped them through a difficult time. And she works with some of country music's most enduring icons like Dolly Parton. I cannot think of anyone more deserving of this award than Lainey Wilson, Parton tells USA Today in an email about her friend being honored as a USA Today Woman of the Year. She is a prime example of talent, hard work, and a soft heart. She told me once that I have been an inspiration to her. Well, guess what, Lainey? You are an inspiration to me as well. Congratulations, girlfriend. I will always love you. So what does she hope her legacy will be? I hope people can see that I was just a girl with a big old dream from a tiny town, she says, who didn't let anything stand in her way, who treated people right, who meant what she said, who followed through, who worked hard and loved people, and wrote some damn good songs. Wilson can still picture her childhood bedroom, the place where Lucky Me took shape. Maybe she'll release it one day. If she does, it won't just be a song about the past. It will be proof that the little girl who believed she belonged on stage was right all along. And continuing, cursive handwriting making its big comeback. Well, I'm all for that, so let's take a look into it. More states are mandating the skill be taught in schools. Many people of certain age remember practicing loops and waves, moving our small hands clutching pencils across pages with light blue dotted and solid lines. But in many schools, that elementary school rite of passage went away as kids turned to computers and keyboards. A growing number of states, though, are requiring schools to start teaching cursive writing to students once again. New Jersey and Pennsylvania each enacted legislation in 2026 requiring schools to teach kids to read and write the way their grandparents did. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro signed the legislation on February 11th. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy signed the mandate into law before leaving office in January. According to Education Week, more than half of U.S. states now require and strongly encourage schools to teach students to read and write in cursive, compared with just 14 states just a decade ago. So, what's behind this writing renaissance? In a November 2024 story, Education Week pointed to Common Core, a set of recommended educational standards launched in 2009 and initially adopted by 46 states. Those standards emphasized mathematics and English/language arts, but did not include any specifics on cursive. Keyboarding instead was seen as a way to prepare students for the computer and digitally focused jobs of the future. Teachers, with just so much instructional time and increasingly tighter standards, had to make choices. School districts wanted to ensure students were meeting requirements for math, science, and reading. Some states and districts dropped cursive instruction. New Jersey stopped requiring it in 2010. Schools also began to pivot more toward technology and away from handwritten work. Students in many districts now have tablets, Chromebooks, and laptops issued by their schools, in addition to the technology in their homes and the smartphones in many of their hands. Sylvia Pereira teaches in the Newark, New Jersey School District, but she spoke to USA Today in her capacity as a leader in the American Federation of Teachers New Jersey chapter and the Newark Teachers Union. She said most teachers she has spoken with agree students should learn cursive and are mostly happy to incorporate it into their lessons, even as the 44-year-old, whose own children learn cursive in school, admits that some of her younger teaching peers never learned it themselves. It went away for a while in some districts, she said. Some teachers, like with anything new, will have some hesitance. We also have to be mindful that some teachers are learning this skill themselves. So we have to make sure we support staff who aren't familiar with it so they, in turn, can support their students. She pointed to benefits of cursive. Students can hone their fine motor skills. It forces them to take their time writing, which in turn helps with reading and writing fluency. And it enables them to read handwritten letters, historic documents, and correspondence. a native of Portugal, she said children in Europe never stopped learning cursive. And she said kids do seem to enjoy it. Once a teacher really sees how much joy the kids are having with it, learning something new and realizing they can actually do it, they are really excited about it. Younger students think this is big kid skill, and they want to do it and look forward to doing it. New Jersey's Democratic-controlled legislature voted nearly unanimously to reintroduce cursive writing in schools statewide. But the mandate had broad bipartisan support from lawmakers even in Pennsylvania's sharply divided state house. USA Today reached out to the 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats in Pennsylvania's Senate who voted no on the legislation mandating cursive instruction in Commonwealth schools. State Senator Dawn Keefer, a Republican, said in a brief phone interview that she supported students learning cursive but voted no because she believed the choice should be left to individual school districts, not mandated by the state. That was my only reservation, she said. It's another mandate we are putting on schools without considering whether they have the necessary resources. I have gotten calls from various school board members who ask me, do you want to run my school board, or should I? Her own children learn cursive, she added, and she recognizes the huge value in learning it. One of her Democratic colleagues in the Pennsylvania Senate, Timothy Kearney, had similar sentiments. The evidence is strong that learning cursive provides many benefits in learning development, but I'm generally losing patience with so many legislative mandates getting placed on schools, his office wrote in an emailed response to USA Today inquiry. Well, I remember learning cursive in grade school in a Catholic school with Felician nuns. That paper with the solid and dotted lines that forced you to do the uppercase and lowercase letters in a flowing manner was a lot of fun. And I still try to keep my skills up in cursive writing, and I'm encouraged by this article. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time checks in at 18 minutes after the hour. And as we enter March, and don't remember, spring ahead this weekend, we have an article entitled, Hey, remember how cold you felt this winter? Well, for much of the U.S., it was one of the warmest. How about that? The 3-month meteorological winter period that just ended will be remembered for its wild extremes in temperature across the United States, including deadly, persistent polar blasts and winter storms in the east. But for much of the nation west of the Mississippi River, it was either the warmest winter on record or one of the warmest. In the west, the temperatures were sometimes blazing hot. The preliminary data available shows the 3-month winter was warmest on record by a ridiculous margin in many locations throughout the American West, said Daniel Swain, a climate scientist with the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources and founder of WeatherWest.com. Collectively, the West was by far the warmest it has ever been in the recorded record for winter, Swain said during a podcast on March 3rd. As he calculates it, you could get in a car at the westernmost point on the coast and drive east for more than 20 hours at highway speeds and still be in a location that saw one of its warmest winters on record. In Texas, a new record was set for the nation's warmest winter day on February 26th when a weather station at the Falcon Dam on the Rio Grande reached 106 degrees. A stretch of about 30 miles along the river saw temperatures soar into the triple digits that day. In much of the West, if it wasn't record warm, it was the second warmest winter period on record, he said. There wasn't really any corner of the West that escaped highly anomalous warmth, he said, except for some areas in the California valleys that saw periods of heavy fog that prevented records from being set. Wild swings in temperature were noted even within Weather Service office regions. In Wisconsin, the La Crosse Weather Service noted a 98-degree range between its warmest and coldest temperatures from minus 32 degrees from minus 32 degrees near Owen on January 25th to 66 degrees at Prairie du Chien on February 17th. Similar swings between hot and cold temperatures were seen in other locations, including South Bend, Indiana, which flipped from a low of minus 10 on February 1st to a high of 65 on February 18th. Overall, it was the region's 45th coldest winter since records began in 1893. Among the summaries of the December through February period emerging from Weather Service regional offices this week were the following highlights. In Phoenix, not only was it the warmest winter on record, but March also started warmer than normal. The high temperature on March 1st was the earliest 93-degree day on record, beating the record set in 1972 by 4 days. Looking at Great Falls, Montana, 5 of the 7 monitored stations saw the most ever 50-degree days this winter. In Bozeman, 37 days of daily highs topped 50 degrees, contributing to its record warm winter. In Sheridan, Wyoming, the daily high temperature beat 50 degrees 44 times and 60 degrees 20 times, both setting records. More wild swings are looming in early March as the eastern U.S. experiences a major pattern change. In many locations, meteorologists are also concerned about rising wildfire risk due to a drier than normal and warmer than normal temperature, as well as the arrival of spring weather. Year to date, the nation has recorded 7,900 fires and 386,000 acres burned, well above the 10-year average to date of 4,300 fires and 92,000 acres, according to the National Interagency Fire Center. Numbers alone do not tell the whole story, but they do reinforce an important truth. Conditions, fuels, and weather patterns vary widely across the country at any given time, the Fire Center stated in its weekly update. Although natural variability played a role, Swain sees the fingerprints of climate change in several aspects of winter weather, including cold snaps. We do not get winters like that very often anymore in the eastern U.S., so they seem more unusual to the people experience the winter weather, he said. While many cold daily high temperatures were set, along with consecutive days with temperatures below freezing, there was no widespread trend this winter among locations with their coldest winter ever. It's also noteworthy that the West exceeded what has become a high bar for higher than normal temperatures, Swain said. Without climate change contributions, it's almost impossible that the United States would have seen the extreme plumes of water vapor that contributed to heavy snow and flooding in some locations, or the low snowpack in parts of the West, he said. That's just the not-so-cold, hard truth. Well, that doesn't make me feel any better because it was one cold, snowy winter, and I don't think it's over. But you are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time is 24 minutes after the hour. Public anger delays vote on White House ballroom. A vote on President Trump's plans for a $400 million White House ballroom is being rescheduled after a commission in charge of deciding the project was deluged with more than 35,000 written comments and 104 people wanting to testify at a public hearing. The National Capital Planning Commission, the overseer of federal property development and site designs, said it's still expected to hold an online public hearing in March to hear from droves of people, most of them with negative opinion, who signed up to speak or reached out via email. Given the large amount of public input on the project, both from witnesses and written comments, the Commission is not expected to deliberate and vote on the project anytime soon, but instead to hold the deliberation and vote at a later date, Commission spokesperson Stephen Stalgiel told USA Today. Stalgiel said the vast majority of responses received via email have expressed negative opinions about the ballroom, and a USA Today cursory review found many angry responses, calling the ballroom idea gaudy, expensive, aggrandizing, and unnecessary. The Commission's public meeting promises to offer a window into the public's view of the project, which led to the demolition of the White House's East Wing. The 12-member Commission board is chaired by Trump appointee Will Scharf, the White House staff secretary, and includes 2 other White House officials. People from across the nation sent written comments by email to the Planning Commission after it solicited comments. An online portal, which opened February 12th, also allowed people to register to speak. Since Trump's ballroom project was first announced by the White House in July, it has undergone numerous changes on financing, seating capacity, and cost. The project price tag jumped from $200 million to $400 million, and the ballroom is now expected to accommodate 1,000 people. How could he just do that without consent from you or Congress? Please, don't let him get away with him building this addition. Gold-plated monstrosity, as it will be a replica of his gold-plated lifestyle, which is disgusting, Penny Jarrett wrote. The project was initiated without the proper authorization, permits, or design review. It is not a modernization project, but rather a complete raising of American history. I want this project canceled and the East Wing rebuilt and restored to its former design, Patricia Abrego said. The East Wing ballroom is unnecessary beyond the pale, Tim Cobb wrote. This president's insecurity and insatiable narcissism is nakedly apparent in this project, to say nothing of his absurd Arch de Trump. I could not disagree more with his boondoggle, he said. Last month, the Commission of Fine Arts, a panel whose members Trump appointed in January, unanimously approved a plan for a 90,000 square foot White House ballroom. The 2 commissions were the only 2 agencies charged with reviewing construction of the controversial project. Commission of Fine Arts Secretary Thomas Lupke said 99% of the 2,000 comments it received had been negative. Similarly, the National Capital Planning Commission received a substantial number of public comments on the project, the majority in opposition to the project, Stalgiel told USA Today. Finding positive comments in the reams of paper was the equivalent of searching for a needle in a haystack. But they do exist. Ann Neiman, a supporter of the project, wrote that her father had been a prominent preservation architect in Alabama. A grand ballroom for the White House has been a vision of many past administrations. It is frankly an embarrassment that the world leaders come to the greatest country on earth only to be welcomed into a giant wedding tent with porta potties, no matter how fancily that may be outfitted, she wrote. Taxpayers should be grateful that private contributors who have been very successful in America are willing to donate the funds to bring this much-needed addition to our Capitol complex. It will provide enhanced security and comfort for our leaders and guests and show them the dignity deserved in grand American style, she wrote. Greg Sullivan, a landscape architect, wrote in favor of the president's project. I voted for our president and what he is bringing to the White House, Sullivan wrote. He will do an awesome job on this much-needed addition, useful by all subsequent administrations. After the East Wing was demolished in October, without warning and leading to a public outcry, the White House argued that under federal law, the 12-member Capital Planning Commission reviews only construction projects, not demolitions of existing buildings. Most Americans opposed Trump's plans to construct a 90,000 square foot ballroom, according to a poll taken the week after the demolition of the East Wing. A Washington Post ABC News poll found 56% of Americans opposed the demolition and ballroom project, including 45% who said they strongly oppose it. Meanwhile, 28% said they fully support the plans. The National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 requires reviews of projects that affect most historic buildings, but the White House, Supreme Court building, and U.S. Capitol are exempt. In December, the National Trust for Historic Preservation filed a federal lawsuit aimed at stopping the construction, saying that the project needs congressional approval and that its size would overwhelm the White House itself. The case was rejected by a federal judge who said the organization did not sufficiently prove the president was exceeding his powers. Rather, it based its challenge on a ragtag group of theories under federal law and Constitution. Still, he said, the court would consider additional efforts if the group decided to amend and clarify its complaint. The preservation group has followed up by filing an amended lawsuit accusing the administration of violating federal laws proceeding without obtaining the required approvals. Trump's team countered in court that the president did not need approval from lawmakers because the project is not using taxpayer dollars and instead is being funded completely by private donations. Democratic lawmakers have raised alarms about accepting money from companies with business before the federal government. Trump's gold-encrusted ballroom has become a vehicle for corruption, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts. Donors include Palantir, Lockheed Martin, and Meta, according to a list provided by the White House. Kathleen McCleary of Northern Virginia asked in her written comments, "Why do we, the people, have no say in this? Why are we concerned with a giant ballroom for lavish parties when the wealth gap in this country is enormous? This project should be stopped." And we move on to the USA Today opinion section for Friday, March 6th, 2026. And I give you a piece written by Kofi Miframa. Interesting name. Ms. Miframa is a columnist and a digital producer at USA Today. And her piece comes to us under the title, "Industry Reflects Depravity of Our AI Boom." America has jumped the shark. Every news headline reads even more sensationalist and nebulous than the next. A national TV journalist's mother vanished off the face of the earth. President Trump and Israel launched an attack on Iran, killing its leaders, while the United States still holds another sovereign leader hostage. OpenAI lent its software to the war machine after siphoning our data through seemingly innocuous artificial intelligence and Studio Ghibli trends. And another deadly shooting we become numb to. Amid it all, that the media, most of us, look for is more a means of escapism than to address the terrors of modern life. HBO's Industry, however, takes an unflinching look at the horrors of late-stage capitalism and its insatiable desire to consume everything in its path. Industry, the HBO program, a love child of Succession and Skins, once followed a group of graduates working at a fictional bank in London, Pierpoint and Company. We saw the group find their footing in the world of finance to varying degrees of success while wrestling with canon experiences of post-grad life and the hollow trappings that accompany the endless pursuit of power. At the center of Season 4 is Tender, a financial investing and banking app targeted at Generation Z. But an investigation from protagonist Harper Stern's new investment fund, which plans to profit off the company's failure, reveals its smarmy underbelly. Despite all of Tender's grandstanding about being the future of banking, none of it is real. The revenue, the cash, the profits, it's all fake. And it doesn't just end there. It's later revealed that the company's co-founder, Whitney Halberstram, played by Max Minghella, is a puppet helping the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation access more data through a potential merger with Peerpoint. The smoke and mirrors of Tender reflect the real-life happenings of Wirecard, a German payment processor and financial services provider that found itself at the center of an international investigation after accounting malpractices came to light. Like Wirecard and the fictional Tender, so many silos of techno-fascism are impactful yet barren. Companies keep funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into ineffective AI ventures, further inflating a bubble that is bound to pop. In 2025, Apple announced $500 billion in U.S. investments that will include a giant AI server factory in Texas and add about 20,000 research and development jobs across the country in the next 4 years. But how sustainable are these jobs if AI advancements reduce the need for human labor? This investment will hire people to build the tools to their own demise, while overwhelming Texas's power grid and water resources and giving huge tax breaks to the wealthy. And of course, more data, because that's what this is all about. And when the work is done, Apple will pack up shop, leaving the Texas plain even more inhospitable than it found it. In the show, Whitney's malfeasances don't just end with his Russia dealings. His assistant, Haley Clay, reveals that she and other young women were hired as escorts to gather blackmail material on potential business partners and adversaries for Whitney to exploit. This makes her threesome with Tender CEO Sir Henry Muck and his wife and Pierpont alum Yasmin Karahanani less of a spur-of-the-moment hookup and more of a calculated move to extort the couple, if need be. Whitney's exploitation of these girls reads almost as unreal as the alleged happenings on Jeffrey Epstein's island. Whitney, and later Yasmin, present this obvious exploitation as an opportunity. Both. And, Yasmin offers, but it's proof that power will twist itself to view clear evils as morally gray necessities. From the beginning of industry, characters wrestle to attain and maintain power in Britain's ossified class system, one that spares no opportunity to remind you of your station in life. Harper is a young black American determined to succeed based on her merit rather than her identity. She's insanely audacious despite never actually earning her college degree. Her tenacity gets her quite far, even after her degree farce gets her fired from Pierpont. The latest installment sees her managing the Mostyn Asset Management firm owned by British financier Otto Mostyn. The first shots of Harper this season depict her strutting from a chauffeured Range Rover to the office of the fund she manages, power-dressed in layers of expensive gray tailoring. She's at her very best when she's self-assured, but sometimes her rashness can lead to self-destruction. When Harper gets bad news about the fund, she makes a poor, hasty decision that gets Otto's attention. When the two meet in Parliament, where he now has a seat in the House of Lords, he reminds Harper of the very thing she's been running from, that she was not given the position based solely on merit. Otto reveals he hired her based on her identity, a puppet in blackface, Harper calls it, during a time when it was advantageous to do so. That woke crap no longer moves the needle in this new world, he tells her. I accidentally called a subordinate an N-word yesterday, and nobody flinched. It's a harrowing look at the post-2020 world where conservatism has wiped away the progressive sheen of COVID-19 America, where attempts, performative or otherwise, to rectify centuries of systemic inequalities have morphed into our country's leaders proudly decimating progressive institutions. It's a known evil that lords over the lives of the marginalized, that your identity is either a bargaining chip or a scarlet letter. It just depends on the weather. Even after Tender's illegal practices are exposed, we see how identity shapes outcomes. When offered the chance to flee the country with Whitney, Henry, an English baronet, sees the escape plan as utterly beneath him. I would rather die as me than run as you. Henry reminds Whitney that he'll never reach Henry's position in life, no matter how much he aspires to. You were born a disgusting frigging mooch, and you will die a disgusting frigging mooch, he said. One of the final scenes of season 4 shows Henry fishing with an ankle monitor after pinning the entire Tender scheme on Whitney. He's accompanied by his aristocratic family members who help him reel in a presumably big catch. All his successes are buoyed by his family name. One thing remains real and true. The institution never suffers, the house always wins. So there you have it, and that's an HBO series known as Industry, if you're interested. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time comes in at 42 minutes after the hour, and we jump over to what the USA Today calls its money section. But every Friday, it's basically the travel and tourism section. So let's see what they have to offer us. Winter in Yellowstone is quieter and snowier. Beat the summer crowds. Appreciate the landscape. Way off in the distance, I could see a wolf. And this is written by Zach Winter, a USA Today travel editor. That's pretty much the best animal sighting you can get at Yellowstone National Park. Even the guides were excited, saying it was the first time a wolf had been spotted in the park in about a month. And although the wolf was more than a mile away, the best I could do in terms of capturing the moment was extremely grainy cell phone video. It really underscored for me how special Yellowstone and the entire national park system is. There I was, in the middle of the great American wilderness, watching a wolf trot across the snow as steam rose around me from natural vents below the ground. Yellowstone is so much more than its wildlife. The first national park in the United States was actually established to protect the natural landscape. Yellowstone National Park was established in 1872 to preserve access to its unique geologic and hydrothermal features, like the geyser Old Faithful. Animal conservation efforts only came later. While visitors flocked to the park during the summer, nearly 1 million people passed through its gates in July 2025. Winter is a time that the park is much emptier. According to my guide, only about 2,000 people a day enter the park in the winter months, meaning you don't have to elbow your way through the throngs to take in the best vistas or see the wildlife. As national parks like Yellowstone continue to grapple with funding uncertainty, it's just as important, valuable, and fulfilling for visitors to go as ever. If you are thinking about a trip to Yellowstone, don't dismiss the idea of going when there's snow on the ground. Here's what you need to know to make the most out of your Yellowstone experience any time of the year. Whatever season you decide to visit Yellowstone, the landscape will be the star. In the summer, hot springs around areas like the Fountain Paint Pot Trail will show their full vibrant colors with mats of thermophile bacteria that thrive in the extreme environments. In the winter, you'll still have the chance to see animals like bison and wolves if you're lucky, but you really get a sense of how much thermal activity there is just below your feet in the park. Random patches of melted snow point to areas where the magma just below the park's surface keeps things warm in unexpected patterns. Be sure to stop by Old Faithful, arguably one of Yellowstone's most well-known attractions, for a natural show. One benefit to going in winter is that you won't have to compete for a front row seat at the geyser. Despite being one of America's most visited national parks, Yellowstone does not require timed entry reservations or permits for access to its popular sites, unlike some other parks, which do have such restrictions. But even outside those well-known attractions, there's plenty to see, so long as you stay on the marked paths. Geysers, mud pots, hot springs, and fumaroles will mesmerize you across the landscape. Yellowstone's unique geology means you can find yourself on dangerous ground if you stray from the designated areas. It's not worth getting a steam or acid burn just to snap your Instagram post from a more unique angle. This is a place that's meant to be sensed, my guide Missy said, but maybe not by covering your body in third-degree burns. National parks continue to be extremely popular places to visit, and many of the flagship parks are working to upgrade their infrastructure to accommodate high numbers of visitors safely. Yellowstone, for example, has robust road infrastructure and facilities such as restrooms dotted throughout the park. Still, according to my guide, the park recognizes that more can be done to improve its facilities, and it's delayed on some of its ongoing capital projects. While Yellowstone's roads are mostly closed to the public during winter, during the rest of the year, vehicles can travel over a massive figure-8 roadway through much of the park. Wildlife sightings can add to traffic as bison cross roads or cars pull over to see other animals in the distance. Parks do use a combination of seasonal staffing increases, traffic control measures, real-time visitor messaging, expanded transit operations, and interagency coordination to manage crowds safely and responsibly, an Interior Department spokesperson told USA Today, stressing the National Park Service's commitment to safe, responsible access and resource management. National parks remain open despite staffing cuts. Throughout the lapse in appropriations, the administration has kept America's national parks safe, clean, and open whenever possible. Thanks to strong leadership and a well-executed contingency plan, the National Park Service maintained essential services, minimized disruptions, and prevented resource damage. Still, when staffing cuts were announced last year, such advocates as the Independent National Parks Conservation Association warn that lower staffing will lead to a reduction in the level of service and ability to protect and share park resources. There are multiple entrances to Yellowstone National Park, which straddles Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, so getting there depends on exactly which area you intend to visit. During the winter, public access is limited, and most visitors will need to go as part of a guided tour. On my trip, I flew into Bozeman, Montana. I was mostly staying in Big Sky, and I got a transfer from my hotel to meet my snow coach tour in West Yellowstone, about an hour away. A standard entrance pass to Yellowstone cost $20 to $35 for a single visit for U.S. residents, while an annual pass can cost $70. National parks now charge extra fees to foreign tourists. During the winter, when most of the park's roads are closed to the public, visitors will need to enter as part of a tour. The tour I took, an 8-hour snow coach tour operated by Yellowstone Vacations from West Yellowstone, cost $240 per person, not including the park pass, lunch, or gratuities. Snowmobile tours, snowshoeing, and cross-country skiing also are available in Yellowstone during the winter months. So, check this out. a piece written by Nathan Diller, who is also a USA Today travel contributor. This retired couple spend a third of the year on cruises. For Heather and Paul Schluter, retirement did not mean slowing down. The pair started traveling full-time in 2023, including setting a goal to spend one-third of the year on cruise ships. That's a tough trip. The couple, who previously were based in Arizona but now spend only about a month there each year, also travel by plane, RV, and train, but have found cruises play an important role in their nomadic lifestyle. It's the easy button for us, said Heather, 56. A lot of our other travelers are complicated and require a lot of work. When we need a break and we want to be pampered, we want everything taken care of for us. We're like, you know what? It's time for a cruise. Younger passengers have shown increased interest in cruises in recent years, but older guests still make up a large portion of their clientele. According to Cruise Lines International 2025 State of the Cruise Industry Report, 17% of cruise travelers were between 50 and 59, while 18% were between 60 and 69. With cruise lines offering a wide range of sailings, including some stretching for months at a time, travelers can comfortably spend much of their retirement on the high seas. And here's how. Jim Lanahan, executive director of AARP, said cruise travel is of high interest to our members. He cited a number of reasons, from its floating hotel format, which allows guests to unpack just once, to its atmospheres. Most of the commercials, I think, are geared at the family audience, which is, roller coasters and water slides and all sorts of constant activities that you do, he said. But what we find is that a lot of the appeal to the older crowd is the cruises where you can relax, where you don't necessarily have a shore excursion every day, where you can just spend some time sitting, relaxing, looking out at the ocean. For frequent travelers, such as the Schluters, who document their trips on their YouTube channel, cruises similarly allow them to sample the world, according to Paul, 62, but they also give them time to reset. Sometimes when we're on our other travelers, and we're just really busy and not taking great care of our health, when we feel the need, we will go book 2, 3, 4 weeks on cruises so we can dedicate gym time and have great healthy food, Heather said. Cruises can have a reputation for overindulgence, but she has found many ships offer a wide range of choices, including lighter fare and options for those with dietary restrictions. So we tell people, we're going to take some cruises to get healthy. They all laugh at us, but it is actually true. For older travelers with mobility limitations, cruises also can be an accessible way to see the world. The Schluters added that incorporating cruises into their travel can be more cost-effective than other modes of transportation. It is often cheaper to do a 12-day transatlantic cruise where all your food's included, entertainment's included, to do that than to take a flight, Heather said. The adjustment to the time change is more gradual as well. We get an experience out of it too, Paul added. Travelers might think of a typical cruise as lasting anywhere from 3 to 7 nights. However, cruise lines offer a variety of options that allow guests to enjoy extended stays on board. The Schluters often take back-to-back or side-to-side cruises. The latter involves disembarking one ship and boarding another on the same day. Many cruise lines also offer long voyages such as world cruises that visit multiple continents and last between 3 and 5 months on average. The Royal Caribbean International's recent Ultimate World Cruise sailed for 274 nights. Travelers can also book those itineraries in segments, allowing guests to board for days, weeks, or months at a time. There are residential cruise ship concepts that function more like permanent homes at sea as well, though they generally are not run by major cruise lines and have some faced operational hiccups. Cabin category is important too, especially on longer trips when it serves as a home away from home. When booking the cruise element, I suggest clients select a higher suite category to give them more space for a longer cruise or access to butlers and extra amenities, said Bridget Marshall of Global Travel Manager. But for the Schluters, the pair noted that they spent a lot of time communicating about what they wanted out of retirement and their travels. I think for sure extensive travel, including extensive time on cruise ships for us personally, has been wonderful couple time. Togetherness, that as you're working and raising children, you don't have that, Heather said. And we've made deliberate efforts to say, hey, this is our time now, and we're doing this together. So I think that's super important. So there you have it. The only thing they did not mention is how they marshal up all the money to lead this lifestyle. But good for them. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, March 6th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walzik. I was happy to be here. I was happy you joined me. I hope you have a great weekend. It's going to get a little bit warmer, too. And don't forget, spring ahead. We lose an hour of sleep, oh my. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Beginning now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Nancy. Life section, which is section B. Here's one from music, news and views. Styles goes darker and deeper on Kiss, from Melissa Ruggieri. It was evident from the first strains of Aperture that Harry Styles' new album would not be the same as it was. Where his Grammy-winning Harry's House danced with taut melodies, inescapable hooks, and blasts of brass, We Still Love You, music for a sushi restaurant, Styles' fourth solo album, Kiss All the Time, Disco, Occasionally, is as quirky and brow-furrowing as its title. That isn't a criticism, just the acknowledgement that Styles' first release in 4 years, out March 6th, takes a hard turn into electronic music meshed with darkwave 80s influences. Breezy pop, this isn't. But it is a showcase for an artist unafraid to stretch and plunge into the deep end. The thumping Aperture arrived as a slow burn song that already sounded like a remix, yet its unconventionality didn't prevent it from racing to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in February, along with the Global 200 streaming songs and digital song sales chart. Styles, age 32, crafted the album's dozen tracks with trusted producer Kid Harpoon, the pair gleefully experimenting with roiling synths and taking cues from artists such as British DJ producer Jamie X, who will join Styles at his Madison Square Garden shows this summer. The title to many songs, Season 2 Weight Loss, Ready, Steady, Go, and Taste Back, among them, aren't better clarified after listening to lyrics that require an archaeologist to expose. When Styles tosses out such lines as, "But you call Leon, you call it only in my head," on the Eurotrash disco banger, Ready, Set, Go, and leads the call and response coda, "Gotta get your feet wet, respect, respect your mother," on the funky Dance No More, the message seems to be, don't worry about understanding it, just feel it. That said, fans will likely scour the internet for clues about the subject of album closer Carla's Song, which is driven by bright synths and throbbing bass that escalates into rattlesnake shakes as Styles intones, "It's all waiting there for you." Likewise, the slow-grooving, piano-pulsing American Girls, which finds Styles skipping through a sing-song chorus of "I've known you for ages, it's all that I've heard, my friends are in love with American Girls." Throughout the album, Styles admirably dedicates himself to progressing, even if it doesn't mean gift-wrapped radio fodder. But no doubt this EDM-imbued tracks will land with a wallop when performed live. Here are some of the standout tracks on Can't Do. Are You Listening Yet? Styles sings over cascading keyboards in his most verbose song, on the album, which also is his most musically stimulating. A clattering chorus of "Now You're All Out of Choices, Are You Listening Yet?" eventually takes flight, but then electric guitar swoops in, the song detours into a drum-heavy break, and somehow it all sounds cohesive. Taste Back. It's a very 80s moment with the industrial synth pop of Depeche Mode or soft cell clear influences as Styles sings over a sweet mellifluous chorus. "Must be lonely in Paris if you talk like that. Did you get your taste back? Or do you just need a little love?" Styles works out his questioning in real time, deciding that yes, you just need a little love. Coming Up Roses. The string-infused ballad is one of Styles' most open-hearted songs, and also contains the magical lyric, "Just for tonight, let's go hangover chasing." The swoony strings coat the song with a lush, old-fashioned feel. But what makes the 8th track on Cato so intriguing is that its softness comes out of left field, like Yesterday popping up between I've Just Seen a Face and Dizzy Miss Lizzie on the Beatles' Help album. pop. If there's anything resembling like, well, pop of styles past, this is it. Except this time he threads some repetitious techno into the mix. You can hear styles unraveling as the song unfurls. But there's no denying the grip of the chorus. Am I in over my head? This could go anywhere. I do it and do it again. It's meant to be pop. It's nice to mix two flavors together, Styles sings, once again offering mystifying lyrics that may make sense only to him, and once again reminding that it's okay to feel more than think. Here's another one from movies. Imagine 2 sings in the next verse of True Story, from Patrick Ryan. Bart Millard couldn't have imagined any of this. In 2001, the Mercy Me frontman released its rousing anthem, I Can Only Imagine, which is now the best-selling Christian single of all time with more than 5 million copies sold. The song went on to inspire a 2018 movie of the same name, which chronicled Millard's tumultuous upbringing and grossed a staggering $86 million worldwide on a $7 million budget. 8 years later, he's back with I Can Only Imagine 2, now in theaters, a faith-based drama that tells the next chapter of Millard's story on and off stage. I don't know if there's a lot of sequels to biopics, so I don't know I would be here again, Millard says with a laugh. As a songwriter in a band, it's intoxicating any time an audience connects with your story. You realize, oh man, we're not alone in this. Sadly, we have all suffering in common. Millard, 53, and the film's coordinator, Andrew Irwin, recently called USA Today to tell us about the emotional, real-life inspiration behind I Can Only Imagine 2. Is I Can Imagine 2 a true story? The sequel picks up shortly after the events of the first movie, as Bart Millard, played by John Michael Finley, is riding high on the chart-topping success of Mercy Me's I Can Only Imagine. But his world caves in when he and his wife, Sophie Skelton, receive the devastating diagnosis that their young son, Sam, has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. As a teenager, Sam, played by Sammy Dell, is eager to pursue his own musical ambitions. But Bart is hypervigilant about his son's fragile health and tries to discourage him from joining the band on the road. Sam's had over 6,000 shots in his lifetime, Millard says. He's only 24 now, and he hasn't had an actual shot in the last 7 or 8 years because technology's advanced so far. So that's a lot in a small amount of time. At screenings of the movie, Millard has met other parents of children with chronic illnesses. They're like, it never ends. Every day it's hard, Millard recalls. Gosh, there's so many struggles. I've heard that the divorce rate is pretty high among people with kids with chronic illnesses. I get it. My greatest achievement is that I'm still married and she's still amazing. But man, those early years were hard. Sam was diagnosed the same week we brought home our second child, Gracie, who was born 6 weeks premature. It was a little chaotic. Who was Bart Millard's father? The first I Can Only Imagine movie traced Bart's relationship with his abusive dad, Arthur, played by Dennis Quaid, who found God before his death from pancreatic cancer in 1991. Arthur appears only in flashbacks in the sequel, but his presence looms heavily over Bart. In trying to be the good father that Arthur wasn't, Bart struggles to balance caregiving for his son with the demands of touring. Sam, meanwhile, feels that his dad is both overbearing and neglectful of his music dreams, and tensions run high between them. It was trial and error. I didn't have the best owner's manual to go by, Millard says. As far as being a parent, the best advice I was ever given was, if you ever just sit around and worry whether you're a good parent or not, you're probably a pretty good parent. A lot of times we feel like we've got to get it perfect, Irwin adds. Showing up is 9/10 of the battle. That was the beautiful gift that was given in this story. Just be present. How did Tim Timmons' cancer battle inspire Even If? The film also charts Bart's friendship with fellow Christian singer Tim Timpson, played by Milo Ventimiglia, who opened for Mercy Me on tour. As the movie depicts, Tim was diagnosed with an incurable cancer in 2001 and told that he only had 5 years to live. Tim's terminal diagnosis, coupled with Sam's health problems, inspired the two men to write Even If, a meditative anthem about clinging to faith and finding strength in God during the hardest of times. Released in 2017, the song is Mercy Me's biggest hit after I Can Only Imagine. If I Can Only Imagine is about hope for tomorrow, even if it's hope for today, Irwin says. Tim is still alive and kicking, 25 years after he was given 5 years to live. To those of us who have known Tim behind the scenes, he's the silent, unsung hero that never craved the spotlight. And every morning, he writes an X on his wrist to say thank you for another day. Will there be an I Can Only Imagine 3? Mercy Me put out their 12th studio album, Wonder and Awe, last summer, and Millard's son continues to release his own music under Sam Wesley. He's a beautiful soul, Millard says. I usually keep my mouth shut and hear other people rave about him, which makes me the proudest dad on the planet. He's a talented, been-through-hell kid. So now with 2 movies under their belts, would the band ever consider a trilogy? Let's not get that far ahead yet, Millard exclaims. Let's see how this one does. I would have said there'd never be a second one. But if there is, we joke that it's going to be with lasers and in space, Irwin adds. You never know. The bride finally gets a chance to speak out, from Brian Tritt. Like the title character of her new movie, The Bride, Maggie Gyllenhaal was possessed by Mary Shelley in crafting her genre-smashing take on The Bride of Frankenstein. The director went down a Shelley rabbit hole. Even though she has a literature degree, Gyllenhaal had never read the British author's 19th century Gothic classic Frankenstein. I loved it, of course, obviously, she says, and the prose sparked her creativity like a bolt of lightning in a mad scientist's lab. I remember thinking, or fantasizing, or wishing that maybe there was a whole lot more that Mary Shelley wanted to say that was not only unpublishable in 1818, but actually maybe even unthinkable, Gyllenhaal says, referring to women and their lack of agency at the time. And once I thought that, Mary Shelley becomes a kind of guiding force. The Bride, in theaters March 6th, cast Jessie Buckley as Ida, a young woman in 1936 Chicago who dies after a gruesome fall down the stairs. When Frank, Christian Bale, otherwise known as Frankenstein's monster, visits scientist Dr. Euphraneous, played by Annette Bening, and asks her to create a maid for him, they raid the local graveyard and dig up Ida, reanimating her as the bride. But there's another character very important to the plot, Shelley herself, also played by Buckley. Seen at first speaking from an otherworldly afterlife, the writer wants to chart the next chapter of her saga. Mary possesses the bride, driving her to be rebellious and revolutionary with Frank on a cross-country, crime-filled quest to find their way in the world. Mary Shelley is the kind of ultimate provocateur, Buckley says. She's the one who's daring us to appeal, to speak the truth, to express the monstrosity, as Gyllenhaal. She's hot, she's punk. She gives the I don't give a hell energy. Buckley, the Irish Hamnet star favored to win Best Actress at the March 15th Oscars, was 8 months pregnant when she filmed in her dreamy scenes as the unhinged and cackling Mary, seen mostly at the beginning of The Bride. She gave birth to a baby girl last summer. I remember being like, whoa, I'm kind of a monster right now. I've got 2 heartbeats inside me. I'm on the precipice of creation, Buckley says. Maybe I'm sending some whispers down into my little daughter that she can kind of catapult into her life when she comes into the world. Playing Mary, I was really responding to the untethered woman, this woman who had been living under the earth. That has died, and finally there's oxygen, Buckley says. She's got a chink of light that's come into this underworld where she can say the thing that she's been trying to say for thousands of years. To give her creature the love that maybe she didn't get to give, or she didn't have the confidence to give when she wrote Frankenstein. Mary makes her presence felt in the earthly realm as well, taking over Ida and the bride's bodies at times. I just had to get to know them each individually, and then start having a big fat conversation with them, all swimming around my head, Buckley says. She also loved the idea of Mary Shelley meeting her monster again for the first time. What a wild thing that would be. Gyllenhaal seeks justice for Bride of Frankenstein. The bride does appear briefly in Shelley's original book as an unfinished creation, and like Buckley, Elsa Lanchester plays Mary as well as the title role in 1935's The Bride of Frankenstein. Yet, while Lanchester's Bride has become a pop culture icon over the years, she's hardly even in her own movie. She's born, reinvigorated, purely to be a mate to somebody that she doesn't even know who the hell that is. The only thing she does is scream, Buckley says of Lanchester's character. The fact the classic cinematic bride doesn't speak one word almost feels like a joke, Gyllenhaal says. Like, how could that be? And how can we all be fine with that? Don't you want to know what she's feeling and thinking and what she has to say? I do. That could be translated to all of the women in the world with directorial minds who are storytellers, the filmmaker adds. Don't you ever want to know what we have to say? Everyone in the world keeps saying, we want something new. We want something hot. We want something that we haven't seen before. If you give the reins and the tools to people coming at it from a different perspective, you'll get something new. Women finding agency and speaking their truth is a theme of The Bride, though Buckley allows it's difficult to get to a place to speak the truth because you might not be heard. But it's been my greatest education through the women I've played to at least acknowledge the truth, acknowledge the shadows, and bring the parts of what it is to be a woman, which may not be palatable, to the surface because that's where I get freedom. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Naga Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time's 34 minutes after the hour. Now here's a review for books. Radio dials up memories of classic rock's glory years, from Melissa Ruggieri. While co-authoring a memoir with guitar hero Steve Lukather, music writer Paul Rees was scrolling through Spotify and realized something important. The number of monthly listeners for Lukather's band Toto, along with many classic rock artists such as Journey, Boston, Heart, Bon Jovi, and Styx, consistently hit above 10 million, on par with plenty of contemporary hitmakers. But most of those authors who solidly ruled the airwaves from the mid-70s through the mid-80s were critically derided, then and now, as corporate rock, their popularity and unfair diminishment. Rees' casual research led him to recognize that this enduring music, which often still steers the highest-rated radio stations in major markets, really hadn't been documented in any meaningful sense, he says. The result is Raised on Radio, Power Ballads, Cocaine and Payola, the AOR Glory Years 1976 song to 1986, Da Capo Press, 490 pages, out now. Reed's riveting oral history of the era of album-oriented rock, or AOR. The genre is exemplified by chart toppers who crafted polished rock songs with memorable hooks, whizzing guitar solos, and more technical skill than often acknowledged. See Boston. As a radio format, AOR also spotlighted album tracks, with program directors at the time following their gut to play worthy songs not necessarily christened as singles by the record labels. Over about 18 months, Rees conducted 53 original interviews, most of them remotely via video, and secured his own archives from his years as an editor of vaunted UK music magazines Q and Kerrang, to call stories directly from the artists. In a recent interview from his home in Scotland, Rees shared insight into assembling the book, which shares a name with Journey's 1986 album, Raised on Radio. Trivia alert, Randy Jackson of American Idol plays bass on it. It was the title right from the word go, Rees says. It's music that, whatever the dopamine receptors in the brain, this hits it. It's happy music, and we could all do with a little bit of that in the moment. Here's what else Rees imparted about his study of backstories during one of the most everlasting periods of radio. Artists offered surprising revelations. Rees tags Toto singer-keyboardist David Paich as one of his favorite interviews for the book, along with Lukather, a man completely without filter, and Bryan Adams' longtime writing partner, Jim Vallance. In the book, Vallance recalls how he said Adams wrote the smash Summer of '69 while sitting across from each other with blank sheets of paper and volleying lines of their memories. It's those happy accidents that Fees was most fascinated with while talking to his subjects. But his absolute favorite was Heart guitarist-singer Nancy Wilson, who shares plenty of stories in the book about sexism. I was kind of the Farrah Fawcett of rock for a minute there, she comments about the band's big hair 80s makeover and record label headaches. Nancy was fabulous. I did a Zoom interview with her in her kitchen, Rees says. A woman playing guitar in a rock band at the time, and Sister Ann as well, and to have endured what she endured, how much they were viewed as commodities. It's not as if people who were there at the time are apologetic. It's always passed off as sort of, that's what the audiences wanted. So her and Pat Benatar, full respect. Which artist turned down the chance to be in the book? While the book is rife with anecdotes and deep conversations with musicians, including Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon, members of Night Ranger, Styx, Chicago, and Foreigner, and archival chats with departed artists, including Boston singer Brad Delp and Eddie Money, Rees notes 3 elusive subjects. I just couldn't get to former Journey frontman Steve Perry, he says. I think he comes out and talks when he has a new record to promote, but I don't think he willingly submits himself to the process. Ditto Tom Scholz, the mastermind of Boston. Another person I really wanted to talk to is Pat Benatar. It got as far as management, and they knocked back the idea. That was a shame, because I'm a really, really big admirer of hers. Rees still managed to gain insights from the trio in the book, drawing on material from previous interviews. One artist who initially turned down Rees's request, but reconsidered, has now become a professional pal. Billy Squier finally said, I'll talk to you, but not about my music. I'll talk about radio and what it meant to me. And when I actually got him, I couldn't stop him from talking, Rees says with a laugh. He was hugely interested and articulate And since then, he's messaged me out of the blue with a new song he's written. Why is there still so much hate for tremendously popular artists? Many of the artists in Reese's book still are some of the biggest touring juggernauts, decades after their most popular work ruled the airwaves. Yet there still is an apology factor attached to saying Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer or Journey's Don't Stop Believin' are irresistible earworms. That lack of respect, Reese says, stems from a simple truth. This music happened without the permission of rock critics. It wasn't music they uncovered, like punk or new wave, which had a critical cachet and discovery point. Music critics like to think they discovered things, and this music was popular because people didn't need to be led by the hand toward it, he says. If you read about 1977, it was the year of punk, as if that was the only thing in pop culture. But if you look at the biggest records of that year, they were Meatloaf's Bat Outta Hell and Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. If you liked one, it didn't preclude you from liking the other. But that's why these songs have endured. They were brilliantly written. And now we've got the sports section, which is Section C. Notre Dame will forever remember Lou Holtz. Longtime football coach at every level, was a tortured genius, perfectionist, and one of one. From Tom Noy. Nobody carried as large of a presence on the Notre Dame campus than the little man with the pipe. He spoke with a lisp, but when he spoke, you listened. It was the gospel according to Lou. During the 11 football seasons, from 1986 to 96, he coached at Notre Dame. It was the Golden Dome, Hesper Library, and Louis Lee Holtz when it came to the biggest Notre Dame icons. Not always in that order, certainly not in 1988. If you asked a campus visitor where they would like to go first, be it the Grotto, the Basilica, or Holtz's front parking lot out front of the old Joyce Center, where when Juniper Road ran through campus, the parking spot where he steered his Buick would be the first step. That's where Lou parks. There was something about the man and his presence that was pure magic. He put a spell on all he touched at Notre Dame, and he touched it all. Lou Holtz was one of one. He owns a permanent place on the Mount Rushmore of Notre Dame football coaches. Rockne and Lay, Parseghian and Holtz. No one else need apply, for now. There wasn't anyone like Holtz before he arrived in a flurry of force and focus from the University of Minnesota in November 1985 to provide Irish football with a sense of purpose and direction. He was the man with the plan, and for 11 seasons, for 100 victories, for one national championship in 1988, Holtz carried out that plan until the day he walked away from the only coaching job he ever wanted, maybe the only one he ever loved. On March 4th, at age 89, after a brief stay in hospice in Florida, where he moved after his coaching days ended in 2004 after 6 seasons as South Carolina, Holtz died. Many knew this day was closing quickly. Still, in the end, it was a shock. The Notre Dame campus that Holtz so loved will feel a little more empty without him. Go to certain spots, take a minute, and you can still see the man with the tan khakis, the blue Notre Dame windbreaker and ball cap, the black shoes and white athletic socks playing his part as head coach. Stalking the back practice fields, zipping out the blue tarped gate in his golf cart, taking Notre Dame to places it had longed to again revisit, nobody on the campus stood taller, except for maybe Father Hesburgh. But a man of the cloth never devised a game plan good enough to beat Southern Cal or Michigan. College football was different during the Holtz years. It was a time when reporters had to be at every single practice during the week, not for a 5-minute viewing window, not for the first handful of practice periods. You were there for the stretch. You were there for Pascal. You were there for special teams. You were there when Holtz would blow his whistle and gather his guys at midfield, after which he would hop on the waiting golf cart and speed into the waiting darkness of another northern Indiana night. Sometimes he would stop at that blue-tarped main gate, stay seated in the driver's seat, pack the pipe, and fire it up while he fielded questions. He would look at you, consider your question for a beat or two, and answer. The pause would feel like an eternity. Nobody so small could strike more fear into a young reporter's heart. You grew up in a hurry on the beat covering Holtz. You had to. Standing on those back practice fields day after day, week after week, month after month, was like attending a graduate class in Coaching 101. From 20 yards, Holtz could tell that the right guard's hand placement was not proper. It was a few inches off. He'd tell the guard to fix the hand. The hand would be fixed. The play would be aligned properly. Practice would continue, but not before the right guard would be asked a yes, a nod, or no headshake question by Holtz, where the answer was always no. Don't shake your head, Holtz would bellow. I can hear a rattle. Laughter around, then a whistle from Holtz. Right back to work. Chaos was a constant companion of his football program. He'd suddenly dart from staff meetings promising to return, but never would. He'd head for his Granger home for a nap or a golf course in Elkhart County. He'd eventually circle back, finish the meeting and the game plan, and then watch the Irish put it all together on Saturday afternoon. Even off seasons were not safe from insanity. Sitting with former defensive coordinator Bob Davie in a conference room reserved for the Notre Dame defense, a reporter could hear a commotion on the other side of the door. It was Holtz stalking the interior hallway in search of assistant coach Charlie Strong. You can still hear that voice. Charlie Strong, Charlie Strong. Where the hell is Charlie Strong? The door swung open. Holtz shot a stare at the reporter. He sized up defensive coordinator Bob Davie. Neither were Charlie Strong. The quest continued. Holtz was gone as quickly as he had arrived. He didn't bother to shut the door. Davis got up from his chair, closed the door, offered a smile and a shrug as he returned to his seat. That was life with Lou. That's the best way to remember Holtz, as the tortured genius perfectionist. Not the character he became late in life with those Dr. Lou segments on ESPN and petty fights picked with Ohio State's Ryan Day. Holtz wasn't the same after Notre Dame. Home games under Holtz were happenings. At the end of the third quarter, the Notre Dame marching band would perform the 1812 overture. It was tradition. So was the student body seated there in the left-hand corner of Notre Dame Stadium to the side of the Irish bench. Up there, they would make L's with their thumbs and index fingers and chant in unison with the 1812. Lou, Lou, Lou. No Notre Dame coach since has been beloved as Holtz. Marcus Freeman has a chance, as long as he delivers what Holtz did, a national championship. In 1996, Holtz, into his 11th year now, but looking like the job had aged him, in 31, wanted to be loved by the administration. When the love wasn't offered, when no one told Holtz he was still needed and wanted, Holtz was done. On a cold gray day, after a 62-0 victory over Rutgers, Holtz stepped into a tent outside the construction of Notre Dame Stadium for his final home game press conference. By then, everyone knew he was done. When he left that tent in tears, you knew Notre Dame football would soon never be the same. For decades, it wasn't. Notre Dame cycled through its share of head coaches post-Holtz. Bob Davie didn't work. George O'Leary never worked. Tyrone Willingham didn't work. Charlie Weiss didn't work. Brian Kelly won more games than anyone in program history. His biggest criticism? He wasn't Holtz. Each time a job search commenced, many longed for Holtz to return and pull Notre Dame back to relevance. He never did. His time at Notre Dame had come and gone. Now he's gone. No more visits to Armando's for haircuts or to the stadium for reunions. Memories of all those 11 seasons and all he did for the university he loved live on. All those stories, hundreds of them, will be retold forever. Each will end the same. Laughter, headshake, comment, that guy was one of one. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Naga Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 54 minutes after the hour. College sports is running out of time? Please, what a bunch of alarmists. From Blake Topmeyer. You've probably heard this college sports model is unsustainable. University of Louisville's president and other school administrators recently co-authored a panicky paper titled College Athletics is Running Out of Time, in which they lamented the insolvency of the enterprise and begged Congress for help. On March 6th, President Donald Trump is scheduled to convene a roundtable under the banner of Saving College Sports. You might recall Trump uncorked an executive order in July entitled Saving College Sports. Apparently, that executive order was about as effective at saving college sports as those bombs Trump ordered last June were in rendering Iran's nuclear program obliterated. Anyway, this is all sounding very dire, right? College sports on the precipice of financial ruin? Oh my. To the extent this is true, but here's an idea. Tighten the belt. Why it's hard to take NCAA athletics crisis seriously. It's hard to take any of these college athletics panicins seriously when they continue to blow through money like drunks in a casino. Days after Louisville released its essay on the financial crisis plaguing college sports, Inc., its neighbor 80 miles away, the University of Kentucky, announced it was strapping retiring athletic director Mitch Barnhart into a golden parachute and stuffing his pockets full of doubloons. Barnhart will transition into a role with a fancy title that basically translates to UK athletics consultant. His salary, $950,000. Just a few years ago, that's what SEC athletic directors were making. Now they're making 3 times that much, while a retiring athletic director like Barnhart can bag almost 7 figures, plus football and basketball tickets and a golf membership. Lest you think UK couldn't possibly survive without Barnhart's consultation, don't forget, he's responsible for the $38 million Kentucky owes to fix football coach Mark Stoops. First task as a consultant, tell the next athletic director not to sign coaching contracts with stupid buyouts. I think I have a beat on this financial crisis college athletics finds itself in. Louisville wants to borrow the NFL salary cap. Just one problem. The Louisville administrators, begging for congressional action, also argued in favor of a hard and enforceable cap on student-athlete payouts, akin to an NFL salary cap. Just one problem. The NFL has a collective bargaining agreement. College sports doesn't. Good luck getting a cap that hampers athletic earnings to hold up court. How about this, fellas? Congress can get to that hard cap on athletic compensation right after it puts a hard and enforceable spending cap on coaching and administrator salaries, plus a hard and enforceable cap on buyouts. Does that sound good? A recent analysis from The Athletic found the buyouts from Football Bowl subdivision head coach firings last season totaled nearly $270 million, more than double the previous single-season record. Some buyout costs can be mitigated through settlements or offset clauses, but that figure still speaks to the soaring rate of severance expenses. If we've got to have those precious federal guidelines I keep hearing about, how about some guardrails on failure money? As Texas A&M Athletic Director Trev Alberts puts it 2 years ago, we don't have a revenue problem in college sports. We have a spending problem. Bingo, buddy. Here come Donald Trump, pro golfers to save college sports. Trump is on the case, though, so I'm sure this will all get ironed out soon. Perhaps he'll release an executive order entitled Saving College Sports Part 2, and voila, problem solved. In the meantime, we've got us a good old-fashioned roundtable queued up. The list of luminaries invited to this meetup in Washington, D.C. reportedly includes pro golfers Tiger Woods and Bryson DeChambeau. If college sports can be saved through a long drive competition, then the future's in good hands. Hey, the NCAA, academia, and Politico classes had their shot at fixing this and achieved very little. So why not let the golf bros take a swing at it, right? Whatever you do, just don't blame the folks steering the college sports enterprise. As Louisville's president, athletic director, and chairman of the Board of Trustees insisted multiple times in the alarmist paper they authored, we don't have the answers, nor are we the experts. No argument here. But they also swear they're not part of the problem. These are not stories of mismanagement, the UFF brass wrote. They are symptoms of a structural crisis. They pointed to Louisville Athletics' $12.5 million budget shortfall. New revenue alone will not solve the crisis if spending continues to escalate without restraint, the Louisville authors wrote. Okay, sure, runaway spending needs to be addressed, but why is federal action required for athletic departments to rein in the gluttony? Louisville paid football coach Jeff Brom $6 million last season. He's a good coach, and that's a bargain rate compared to what some peers paid worse coaches. But Brom's salary is almost double what Louisville paid his predecessor, Scott Satterfield, 4 years ago. Nobody forced these schools to double coaching salaries every 4 years, even while support staffs became larger than ever. A scan of Louisville's athletic department website shows that school employs 16 individuals with the words Associate AD, Senior Assistant AD, or Deputy AD in their job title, plus another glob of assistant ADs. Then there are 5 assistant equipment managers. They're not to be confused with the Associate Director for Equipment Operations or the Director of Equipment Operations. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they all work very hard, but I want to make sure we're not solely blaming this financial crisis on schools now having to cut athletes in on the revenue they've been helping generate all these years. Louisville says operating deficit not a sign of mismanagement. Put football and men's basketball aside, and most sports within a college athletic department operate on a loss on the balance sheet. That's nothing new, but administrators have become more concerned about these losers now that they're about spending more on athletic compensation. Louisville's women's basketball program apparently is headed for a $4 million operating deficit. These are not signs of mismanagement, Louisville's administrators wrote. I'm sure it's not all related, but the Cardinals traveled to Cal and Stanford to play conference games this winter. Remind me, who decided to put 2 California schools in the Atlantic Coast Conference? Did Congress decide that? No. Did the athletes decide that? No. Did the judicial system make that call? Again, no. Ah, yes, I remember now. University and athletic administrators and conference commissioners decided to realign and grow conferences from coast to coast, right before frenetically begging Congress for a bailout that saves them from themselves. Congress must get involved before it's too late, the Louisville Brass wrote. Or try this idea. If you're truly afraid of going broke, tighten the belt instead of begging for a bailout. The Mammoth acquire Flames Mackenzie Weegar, from Mike Brem. March 4th was a day for NHL defensemen to change teams ahead of the league's trade deadline at 3 o'clock Eastern, March 6th. Tyler Myers got the ball rolling by accepting a trade from the Vancouver Canucks to the Dallas Stars. The 6'8" Houston native will be playing in his home state on the same team as 6'7" defenseman Liam Bichsel. Nick Blankenburg also moved from the Nashville Predators to the Colorado Avalanche for a 2027 fifth-round pick. But the biggest move of the day was the Utah Mammoth, acquiring defenseman Mackenzie Weegar from the Calgary Flames. Acquiring Mackenzie solidifies our back end as we continue to push towards the playoffs, and he will be a great addition to our team on and off the ice, Mammoth General Manager Bill Armstrong said. Mackenzie Weegar trade details. The Mammoth acquired defenseman Mackenzie from the Flames for defenseman Ali Mataya, forward Jonathan Castagna, and 3 2026 second-round picks. Utah's own and others previously acquired from the Ottawa Senators and New York Rangers. Mammoth trade, grade, A-. Armstrong has been aggressively remaking the defense since the team moved to Utah in 2024. He added Michael Sergeyev, John Marino, and Ian Cole that first season, and Stanley Cup winner Nate Schmidt last summer. Weegar gives the Mammoth a solid top 4 as they try to hold on to the wild card position. And the Mammoth landed him without trading Tejignia, who would seem unnatural to be part of a trade to Calgary, where his father, Jerome, had starred. Flames trade, grade, B-. Considering that Weegar is signed through 2031, it's surprising that the Flames didn't pry away a first-round pick. But 3 second-rounders are good in what's expected to be a deep draft. Ali Manaya is a pending unrestricted free agent, and Castagna, a third-round pick, is averaging a point a game in his third season at Cornell. Breanna Stewart powers missed to unrivaled title, from Heather Burns. Breanna Stewart has won at every level of women's basketball. Now she can add Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 women's professional basketball league she helped start, to that list. Stewart's championship haul prior to March 4th, 2 high school state titles, 4 NCAA championships at UConn, 3 WNBA titles with the Seattle Storm and New York Liberty, 3 Olympic gold medals with Team USA. Now, she is also an unrivaled champion after helping the Mist BC defeat the Phantom BC 80-74 on March 4th at Sephora Arena in Miami. It was the second season of the league Stewart helped co-found with former UConn teammate Nafisha Collier. I pride myself on being a winner and continuing to kind of uplift and build a space for all players, Stewart said, and that's what I'm really excited about. The end of the title game was somewhat anticlimactic. Stewart was first charged with an offensive foul, but when the call was overturned, she shot free throws to seal the Mist victory. She finished with an unrivaled career-high 32 points. She grabbed 4 rebounds, had 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Arlie Okanyaswal added 19 points off the bench, and Alicia Gray 12 points for the Mist. The 6 Mist players earned $100,000, up from the $50,000 every Rose player earned for last season's title. Kelsey Plum scored 40 on 14 for 21 shooting for the Phantom, who entered the tournament as the number 1 seed. Kiki Ariffin added 13 and Tiffany Hayes 12. The Mist led by 6 points going to the fourth quarter, which in unrivaled rules is untimed. The league adds 11 points to the scores of whichever team is leading at the end of the third quarter, and that's the target score. In this case, first team to 79 points won. Iowa native wrestler eager for inaugural NCAA championships, from Eli McCone. To say that the first ever NCAA Women's Wrestling National Championships was a dream for the 180 wrestlers participating in it would be a stretch. For this group, an NCAA tournament was far from possible when they were growing up with women's wrestling still in its infancy. Now, in 2026, one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S. is the 91st NCAA sanctioned sport. The inaugural tournament is set for March 6th to 7th in Coralville, Iowa. One of these 180 wrestlers is Charles City native Lily Luft. She'll be the lone Iowa native representing the Hawkeyes at Extreme Arena, doing so as the number 4 seed at 138 pounds. From growing up with brothers who were wrestlers, to starting wrestling full-time her freshman year of high school, to winning 3 state titles for Charles City, and now representing the biggest wrestling brand on the largest stage, Luft and the sport have grown right alongside each other. Luft is one of the pioneers of girls wrestling in Iowa, winning her senior state title at Extreme Arena at the first tournament sanctioned by the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union. She'll now have an opportunity to compete in the first official NCAA postseason, too. It's not a dream realized for Luft, considering NCAA women's wrestling wasn't even considered a possibility to begin with when she was growing up. But it still means the world knowing how far she and the sport have come. It means everything, Luft said. We've been working years to have this opportunity when we can have a real NCAA tournament just like the men. For that to come to fruition and be able to do that this year is incredible. It just goes to show all the hard work that every single female in the sport has put forth. Luft's journey in Iowa City has had its ups and downs. An NCWC All-American as a true freshman, her sophomore season was plagued by injury. As a junior, Luft had to win a fierce lineup battle to become the Hawkeyes' postseason representative at 138 pounds. Regardless of how she got here, the Hawkeyes are going to need everything Luft can provide. 2-time defending champion Iowa enters as the underdog to McKendree University. North Central beat both Iowa and McKendree outright at NWCA National Duels, too. With a narrow difference making up these programs' lineups, the Hawkeyes need Luft to perform as she has in the past at Extreme Arena, a place where she grew into the wrestler she is today with 3 straight titles. This isn't a foreign place to her, Iowa coach Clarissa Chun said. It's home. Go do what she does and what she has done in Extreme Arena. Luft hopes to showcase freestyle wrestling at its best to the fans in Coralville. To be a homegrown Iowa girl getting to go there and represent my state proudly. It's awesome, Luft said. Cowboys restructure 3 contracts to slide under the cap. Jack McKessie. The Dallas Cowboys managed to limbo underneath the NFL's 2026 salary cap with 1 week to spare. Dallas restructured the contracts of 3 key players: quarterback Dak Prescott, wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, and offensive lineman Tyler Smith, to free up roughly $66 million, according to ESPN, making the Cowboys cap compliant. ESPN reported that the Cowboys were roughly $55 million over the cap prior to restructuring the 3 contracts. Over the cap lists Dallas's current available cap space at $8.5 million as of the afternoon on March 4th, still 1 week out from the start of the 2026-27 league year and NFL free agency on March 11th. According to ESPN, all 3 players' contracts were restructured by turning a significant portion of their base salaries into signing bonuses for cap purposes. Prescott's 2026 base salary is now $1.8 million, down from $40 million. Lamb and Smith's base salaries dropped to the $1.7 million range, per ESPN's Todd Archer. Prescott's cap hit in 2026 drops to $43.7 million as a result of the restructure, according to Over the Cap. Lamb's drops to $20 million and Smith's to $11.2 million. However, all 3 players' cap hits inflate significantly in 2027. Prescott's 2027 cap hit is nearly $76 million, Lamb's is $46.2 million, and Smith's is $19.5 million. Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones said at the NFL Combine the Dallas will also work to restructure at least 3 more contracts, those of defensive tackles Kenny Clark, Hosea Ogunzua, and Quinnen Williams, to create extra salary cap room. I would bet that we will spend more money in free agency than we have, Jones said at the Scouting Combine. I want you to know that the only way to push more is for me to go borrow some of my future, okay? Expect me to go borrow some of my future. George Pickens, on whom the Cowboys placed their franchise tag this offseason, currently counts $27.3 million against the team's 2026 cap. That number could also deflate with a long-term extension. The Cowboys now rank 18th in the NFL in salary cap space. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for March 6th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 47 of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. At 3 o'clock is the New York Magazine. At 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio reading serves people who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. From its broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, just north of Clinton Street. Almost 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those unable to read printed matter on their own. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, books, and other printed matter. People who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula are provided special reading radios. This year, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service marks almost 40 years on the air. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Service studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service website is nfradioreading.org. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555.
Welcome to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today is Kelly Lalka, the Education Program Manager of the Western New York chapter of the Alzheimer's Association.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents